Hello, 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 and welcome to Nursing Use You Can Use It 5. I'm Tina Baxter, and I am your host. And I want to thank you for tuning in today. And I wanted to go ahead and get started on our inspirational quotes for today. This is from Lao Tzu, and it says, if you realize that all things change, there is nothing you will try to hold on to. If you realize that all things change, there's nothing you will try to hold on to. Second, there are two ways to be happy: change the situation or change your mindset towards it. There are two ways to be happy: change the situation or change your mindset towards it. Those are a couple of our inspirational quotes of the day. And I want to say hello to those of you that are on our Nurse Shark Academy page, and those that are on our Baxter Professional Services page, and those of you that are on our YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in on this December 13th, 2023. And we have a heavy news cycle today. So I do want to get into the news. But as we get ready for the news, I want to start off with a couple of quick announcements. We have coming up on December the 20th, next week, Wednesday, we have our TB validation class. So if you need to get that TB validation in before the end of the year, now is a good time to get that done and to get that completed before the end of the year. So I wanted to let you know that that is also going to be available. And then we also have coming up our challenge, our 3-day Kickstart Your 2024 Nurse Biz Challenge. So I'm encouraging anyone, you don't have to be a nurse to attend, but anyone that wants to kickstart their 2023, now is a great time to do that. We're going to have our 3-day challenge, and we're going to go live in our Facebook challenge group. We're going to go live on our YouTube channel and live on LinkedIn. So you have the opportunity then to attend this challenge. Sign up at the nursesharkacademy.biz. All right, let's go ahead and get into the news. The first story coming out of the state of Massachusetts and the city of Boston. Here we go. The Boston VNA nurses and healthcare professionals cast a unanimous vote authorizing a 14-day strike. This was just published on today, actually. So it says, in response to an increase in the complexity of care required for patients admitted for care at home, in conjunction with the lack of staff and resources to provide that level of care, the 60 registered nurses and healthcare professionals who work for Visiting Nurses Association of Boston, VNA Care, cast unanimous vote to authorize a 14-day strike in an effort to move their administration to provide the staffing and wage enhancements they need to provide the care their patients deserve. The nurses and healthcare professionals who are represented by the Massachusetts Nurses Association announced the vote result at a press conference held yesterday outside the BVNA's office in Dorchester. It goes on to say, while no nurse or healthcare professional wants to strike, we have decided to take this step because the issues at stake are critical to our ability to fulfill our professional and moral obligation to provide the best and safest care for our patients, according to Joan Hurton RN, who's the chair of the MNA local bargaining unit for the nurses in the agency. She went on to say, unfortunately, our administration has failed to provide us with resources. We need to safely care for our patients, treating us more like workers in a factory rather than highly skilled professionals caring for vulnerable human beings with complex health conditions. So again, now the strikes are moving into the home care agency. This brings on the other concerns that the nurses had. And it says, as documented in a recent study, compared to nurses in acute care settings, home care nurses face unique threats to safety, including unsanitary conditions in homes, dangerous pets, firearms in the home, hostile patients or family members, high crime neighborhoods, and motor vehicle accidents while traveling between patients. Yep, I can attest to all of those things because I have encountered all of those things and working in home care and hospice. So, yes. In November, a 63-year-old nurse in Connecticut was murdered by a patient while performing a home health visit to the halfway house where he was living. And I want to say, if you want to know more about that particular story, check out my blog on the Nurse Shark Academy .biz, and you can see on the blog post for this week that just went out earlier this morning about the case of this nurse that was murdered in Connecticut, and then also a case of a nurse that was murdered last December, visiting a home where the grandson shot him. The grandson of the resident that he was taking care of shot him. So these are things that are there. You can certainly read this full story and this from the nurses there, but it's now spreading to home care agencies, and they are now also striking. Okay. Here's another story. Okay, that was strange. Okay, is it open? All right, that one won't open, so we'll go on to this one. All right, and it says, defense asks court to temporarily halt elder abuse civil suits against Lewisburg Nursing Care Home. This is reported in the Daily Item. And it says Union County Judge Michael Pikuch is considering a defense motion to temporarily halt a civil lawsuit filed against Heritage Springs Memory Care in Lewisburg until the criminal cases are resolved. So let's go ahead and get into this. On Tuesday, the judge heard oral arguments from attorney Erica Wilson of Murray, Stone, and Wilson in West Conshohocken, who represents 6 families affected by the extensive elder abuse at the assisted living facility in Lewisburg. And then the attorney Joshua Bovender of Thomas and Haffer, who represent the juvenile employee accused of elder abuse, and attorney Victoria Scanlon of Marshall Dennehy Scranton office, who represents Heritage Springs defendants. Pikuch said he would review the case and make a decision at a later time. So let's talk about what happened. So according to this is what's happening. There is a civil lawsuit that is going forward against these individuals and the nursing home, the assisted living, because of the employees that were there that participated allegedly in elder abuse. But because there's a criminal case against them, they're wanting to halt or slow down the civil case until the criminal case is resolved, because if they testify in the civil suit, it could be used against them in the criminal case. So Pikuch said it could be a matter of months or more than a year before the criminal cases are resolved. Bovender is also asking for a stay authorized to the Fifth Amendment for the juvenile defendant. So there have been 7 lawsuits filed from the families against them. And so this is what is alleged. So according to the report, the 17-year-old male resident assistant, I want to say this again, 17-year-old, so he at that time was a juvenile, although he did turn 18 in August, and his co-worker, Aide Cox, 19, who's an adult, allegedly took numerous nude and demeaning photographs and videos of 17 residents between December and April. They allegedly posed with patients in the shower or on the toilet, took pictures of patients who had defecated themselves or had fallen to the ground, and took video of themselves demeaning or harassing the individuals, according to the court documents. Then they allegedly sent those records to each other, shared them on the phone app Snapchat, and showed them to classmates at school. The victims range in age from 72 to 100 years old. The majority of the people residing in Heritage Springs are in various stages of Alzheimer's disease or dementia, which limits or severely impedes their cognitive abilities. Cox, who has been charged with 17 misdemeanor counts of abuse of a care dependent person, is scheduled for pre-trial conference on January the 18th. In November, the unidentified male was adjudicated on 17 of the 13 counts, and his disposition was transferred to another county. Adjudication for a juvenile is the functional equivalent of being found guilty in an adult criminal procedure. A disposition hearing in juvenile court is akin to sentencing hearing in the adult court. So I'm saying this to say, I report on this story because one, it's egregious to what these individuals have alleged to do. But the other thing is, it's very important that when you are having individuals in training or working, that they understand the risks that are involved. And these young people today, this is what not to do, young people. This is what not to do for anyone. Don't do this. That's not funny. And it could lead to criminal and civil penalties against you. And I feel for these families and what happened to them, but I also feel for the families of these two young people, because what they did was not only stupid, but criminal. And so, yeah. So let's move on, because I wanted to get to this other story. This is from NPR, Indiana Public Radio, and this is talking about attacks on healthcare in war zones. And this is what I found interesting. So this came out again today, and it says attacks on healthcare are on track to hit a record high in 2023. Can it be stopped? It says the year 2022 set a grim record: 1,989 attacks on healthcare facilities and their personnel, the worst total number in the decade since the Safeguarding Health in Conflict Coalition began its sobering count. This year is on track to be even more devastating for the toll on healthcare. In many of the world's ongoing conflicts, like Sudan, Syria, Ukraine, and now between Israel and Hamas, healthcare has been a target. The reasons for this may differ from conflict to conflict, but the end result is an affront to international humanitarian law written to protect health care in times of war. Article 18 of the Fourth Geneva Convention states, civilian hospitals organized to give care to the wounded and sick, the infirm, and maternity cases may in no circumstances be the object of attack, but shall at all times be respected and protected by the parties to the conflict. Article 19 continues with, the protection to which civilian hospitals are entitled shall not cease unless they are used to commit, outside their humanitarian duties, acts harmful to the enemy. So again, these attacks on healthcare workers, I just saw a picture of a doctor in, I believe it was Israel, and he had to perform surgery on a child, his child or grandchild, that wasn't successful. These things happen. It's horrific, these things that happen. So war is never pretty, but this kind of goes to show that it's even more than just domestic violence. There's international and war violence that we have to worry about. So that's what I'm saying. It's tough to be a healthcare worker. It says global health officials are concerned with the quickening pace and severity of attacks in multiple conflict zones. Margaret Harris says the sanctity of healthcare is less and less respected. It seems the world has lost its moral compass. And as a person who's dealing in the healthcare field and seeing this firsthand, we were just talking about this the other day, where it seems like you used to be respected in the healthcare field, but now you got people coming and screaming at you and threatening you. And this is something that's going on. We've been talking about this more and more and more. Okay, so let's move on, because there's a lot to cover today. So let's move on back to Washington, D.C. And this is another story. You can certainly look this up, but this says hundreds of D.C. Medicaid nursing home patients sent to Maryland. So this is coming out of NBC4 Washington. And this is certainly a problem that I've seen because this happened in Ohio, where a lot of the nursing home patients in Ohio can't get placed. There's not room for them, so they end up going to other places like Michigan. And so this is happening in Washington, D.C. There's a growing crisis for some of the aging population in the nation's capital, advocates say. The News 4i team found some DC residents who need care being sent long distances from the community they know. Hundreds of DC residents, some of them unhoused, are residing in Maryland nursing homes. So, according to this, it says on a hot September day, the News 4 team spotted Simon Reed, a Northeast DC resident, in his wheelchair along Stewart Lane in Clinton, Maryland, a suburb in Prince George County. He was panhandling outside a McDonald's. He said he's been living in the Clinton Healthcare Center for 3 years, longer than he ever expected. He said he was sent to Clinton after a medical emergency. I got my triple bypass, my heart surgery. He told iTeam, a nonprofit that provides medical care to people experiencing homelessness in D.C., sent him to the Maryland nursing home. Reed was one of the many residents that the iTeam observed over several weeks, taking an almost daily dangerous trek along busy highways in their wheelchairs and walkers. It was that dangerous circumstance that prompted viewer Melinda Wilmanson to contact iTeam. She said she was concerned about the safety for the nursing home patients. And she says, as you can look behind us, the residents are rolling up the hill in wheelchairs, and many of them do not have motorized wheelchairs. Wilmanson, a registered nurse who lives nearby, was so worried about what she saw, she started talking with some of the nursing home residents to find out what was going on. She says a lot of it has to do with that there's no place for them to go, is what many of them have shared with me. The iTeam found that Simon isn't the only DC resident there. According to DC's Department of Healthcare Finance, 180 Medicaid beneficiaries had paid claims at the facility last year. The iTeam's investigation found that this nursing home is part of a larger trend. Legal counsel for elderly long-term care Ombudsman Director Mark Miller said there's a reason for more local people, especially the city's Medicaid patients, are being sent across the Maryland line. He says, right now, we believe that there's probably close to 500 district residents that are in Maryland facilities, and DC Medicaid is paying millions of dollars for these people that are not in their own community. They said the district has lost 439 facility beds in the past decade, and most of them were converted to other types of housing. So I have to say that I did have a chance to visit one of those nursing homes in Washington, D.C. years ago when I went there on a missions trip with my university. And so that was one of the things that we did. And so I'm curious to know which facilities closed, because that was a very nice facility that they had out there, and I knew it was run by the city. So it says DC currently is underbedded in terms of nursing homes. There's just not the capacity to meet the current need. Miller called that more than an inconvenience, saying it's also isolating for many of the residents. So imagine that maybe you have family, but it's hard for them to get around, and you're now outside of the district and where they live. How they're going to get to visit you, get the things that you need. So again, those are other stories that are out there. There's more to the story. Please take a look at it. But this is a phenomenon that is not just happening in Washington, D.C., but I know that it's happening in other places because I've witnessed some of this firsthand. All right. Let's move on because we've got, again, a lot to cover. So this is from KARE 11. And this story is about a nurse that has lost her license after an inmate dies in her care. So this is coming out of St. Paul, Minnesota. It says 5 years after inmate Hardell Sherrill died in her care and numerous calls for action to be taken against her, the Minnesota Board of Nursing on Tuesday revoked the license of Michelle Skrock. Skrock was directly in charge of Sherrill's care in the Beltrami County Jail the last 2 days of his life in 2018, when he became paralyzed and likely succumbed to Guillain-Barré syndrome. Though Sherrill's caregivers believed he was faking his symptoms, Skrock failed to help him or even check his vital signs. In revoking Schrock's license, the board relied on the recommendations of administrative law judge Barbara Case, who found Schrock's careless disregard of Sherrill's violated numerous state laws. Schrock not only failed to take Sherrill's vital signs, but also observed him from a window in the hallway on the day he died, Case wrote. There, Schrock watched as Sherrill laid on a mattress while spit rolled down his cheeks. Schrock told staff to give Sherrill nutrients through a straw. She did not assess him again. He died about 2.5 hours after she left the jail. Schrock, according to what Case wrote, she claims that she was able to observe him at a distance, that there was no harm in not taking vital signs, that it's normal procedure to delegate personal care to jail staff, that she was too busy to devote more time to Sherrill, and that her treatment of him was the standard treatment for patients diagnosed as malingering. Schrock, quote, exhibited a careless disregard for her patient, Case wrote. The careless disregard is heightened by the fact that because he was in custody, licensee was Sherrill's only means of obtaining the medical care he required. Schrock did not respond to requests for comment to KARE 11. At the time of Sherrill's death, Schrock was the director of nursing for MEND Correctional Care, which at one point was the largest provider of jail health services in the state. The company was run by Dr. Todd Leonard, whom Schrock was in a romantic relationship when Sherrill died. MEND has since filed for bankruptcy and is no longer in business. Leonard had his medical license suspended in January 2022, though it was restored last month. So if you want to know more about this story, please head over to KARE and take a look at this, because that was wild. And so again, here's my thing. On the one hand, you have, okay, maybe a potentially dangerous situation, but you have jail staff right there to go with you. And nurses, you have to do your basic and do your assessment. You can't let that go. All right, here's our next story, because like I said, there's a lot going on in healthcare today. And so this is across the pond. And this is about the nurse Lucy Letby, where they had this, I think, a series on her, a documentary and all of this. And it says that she has been found unfit to practice and struck off the register. So again, this is from across the pond. So it says child serial killer Lucy Letby has been struck off the nursing register at a hearing, which was told she maintains her innocence over her convictions. Letby was convicted of murdering 7 babies and trying to murder 6 others. A Nursing and Midwifery Council fitness to practice panel heard she would not, quote, resist being struck off, but did not accept that she was guilty of any of the allegations. Letby, who committed her crimes while working as a neonatal nurse at the Countess of Chester Hospital between June 2015 and June of 2016, was sentenced to a whole life order for each of her offenses. The NMC's representative, Christopher Scott, told the 3 members of a fitness to practice panel in East London that the charges brought by the body against Letby reflected her criminal convictions. He said it was a matter of legal fact that she was convicted of 7 counts of murder and 6 of attempted murder, and that MHC had brought 14 charges against her. The panel, which chose to proceed in Letby's absence, was told she had been asked in a tick box exercise if she accepted the NMC's charges. She ticked yes to each of the charges, but added, "I do not wish to take part or be present at the hearing. I do not resist the application to strike me off the nursing register," she stated. "I accept the fact of the convictions. However, I do not accept that I'm guilty of any of the allegations." The panel was told she also stated that she maintained her innocence in all respect of the convictions, adding, "These convictions are now subject of an appeal." Mr. Scott said the harm that Letby caused was so egregious, the lack of insight and remorse that she demonstrated so striking, that the finding of impairment is necessary. He added that her convictions were so serious that they could not be remediated, and that a failure to find her unfit to practice would invoke a crisis and public confidence. So there's more to this story, but if you want to look up the incident with former nurse Letbe, who is in prison now, you may do so as well. This next story is coming from Skilled Nursing News. And it says leading edge CEO calls out political inaction on dangerously broken nursing home funding system. Okay, we've talked about nursing home funding before, but here we go. It says decades of long underfunding of nursing homes continues to create unnecessary hardships for aging Americans as access issues deepen, and yet attempts to change the current financial system has fallen on deaf ears. In an effort to get the attention of lawmakers in Washington, leading edge President and CEO Katie Smith Sloan took aim with this view at the long-term care financing system in an editorial for The Hill on Monday, calling reimbursement dangerously broken. She wrote, "It's inevitable that residents and their families will experience firsthand the country's insufficient approach to financing long-term care with the nation's rapidly aging population. The question is, will our leaders finally care enough to take action? If the past is prologue, the answer is a terrifying no." She points to a lack of progress on past federal legislation to revamp financing. She specifically noted inaction on the CLASS Act, a part of the Affordable Care Act, and the WISH Act, or Medicare Long-Term Care Services and Supports Act of 2018. This is on top of stringent regulatory requirements from the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare, including federal minimum staffing proposal released in September. Currently under review, federal regulators may take up to 3 years to finalize its allowed by medical rules. This means a deadline is September 26, according to the fall of 2023 Unified Agenda posted on the website for the White House of Management and Budget. So again, it's going on. It's saying that many of the operators and associations, including Leading Edge, said the proposed rule is written as unattainable unless financing is updated timely to reflect the rising cost of care. So we'll see what happens. She says that some facilities like Smith Sloan noted in the case of Rhode Island's Lynn Health and Rehabilitation, whose expenses have increased by up to 35%, with the state's reimbursement, meanwhile, has only gone up 8%. To meet the funding shortfall, best efforts by residents at Lynn raised a meager $2,000 through a bake sale, but funds failed to make a dent. The Lynn facility is losing about $100,000 a month, with the cost of caring for Medicaid-eligible residents hitting at $411 a day, while it receives an average of $255 per day for a Medicaid resident. So that's where some of those issues are coming in, and I wanted you to be aware of that as we move on. Because more in healthcare news, this is coming from Harvard, the School of Public Health. And it says obstetric units are closing at a growing number of hospitals across the U.S. As a result, many patients are being forced to travel farther to give birth and receive prenatal and postpartum care. Alicia McGregor, Assistant Professor of Health Policy and Politics at Harvard, T.H. Chan School of Public Health, has found that these closures disproportionately impact communities of color, further exacerbating the already high health risks Black and Hispanic women face when giving birth. McGregor is currently looking at how pregnant people in the predominantly Black neighborhoods of Southeast Washington, D.C. have been navigating their care following the loss of their only 2 maternity wards in 2017, followed by the COVID-19 pandemic. She shared preliminary results during a Health and Policy Management Department seminar on November the 29th. Nationwide, 217 hospital obstetric units closed between 2011 and early 2023, according to healthcare consulting firm Chartis, creating many so-called, quote, maternity care deserts, defined as counties lacking obstetric care. The reasons for the closures included declining birth rates, staffing shortages, increased costs, and the chilling effect of new anti-abortion laws. But McGregor noted common threads. Hospitals that appear most likely to close are often the most reliant on Medicaid, which reimburses at lower rates than commercial insurers, and those that stay open but lose their obstetric units are those that serve more Black patients. So there's more to this story, and you can certainly read on it. But I just wanted you to be aware of these issues that are coming up, because it's affecting not just long-term care and older adults and the lack of resources there, but it's also affecting maternity care and at the beginning of life. And so it's important to see that, yeah, healthcare, we are in a crisis. So let's look at this next story, because yeah, this was crazy. Now this came from the Daily Beast, so but this to me was people, this is a case of mind your business. Mind your business. So it says nurse sues over former co-worker's nonstop taunts about her fake derriere. Okay, so a nursing assistant working at an assisted living facility in New York City suburbs, claims her colleagues simply could not believe her ample derriere was all natural for months, demanding the name of the physician who gave her the supposed implants and making her life a living hell when she didn't share it. Melaus Laguerre told her co-workers at Andros on the Hudson, a Westchester County nursing home, that it is not true that she did not have a fake bottom and that it was all hers. But her repeated denials and protestations to the contrary would neither convince nor assuage them. She insisted again and again she wasn't hiding anything. There's no doctors who did anything. There's no implants, but it made the work environment poisonous and continued to, she felt harassed. So it says, according to her attorney, Anthony Odefil, she became depressed over the abuse and says there were times when she didn't want to go to work. She just couldn't take it and called out sick. After she complained to management, and this is where the issue comes, she was suspended, then fired. Meanwhile, Laguerre's alleged harassers remain on the job, having suffered no repercussions whatsoever. So I'm saying that to say, y'all, mind your business. Mind your business. Don't be asking people about stuff they don't want to talk about. Mind your business. Okay. So here's another story we're going to get about. This is about the nurse in Connecticut. So a nurse's fatal last visit to patient's home renews calls for better safety measures. The killing of a Connecticut nurse making a house call in October was a nightmare come true for an industry gripped by the fear of violence. Already stressed out by staffing shortages and mounting caseloads, healthcare workers are increasingly worrying about the possibility of a patient becoming violent, a scenario that is too common and on the rise nationwide. Joyce Grayson, a 63-year-old mother of 6, went into a halfway house for sex offenders in late October to give medication to a man with a violent past. Okay, I'm going to stop here right now. Why would you send a woman, any woman, I was going to say a woman of a certain age, but any woman, into a halfway house full of men who are known sex offenders with no help, alone? That's asking for trouble. Why would that not even be a consideration of being inappropriate and not good safety practices? That would be like saying, let's send someone into the lion's den and make sure that you strap on her some beef, right? So the lions know dinner's on. I'm sorry, but that's just how I look at it. So the police found her body in the basement and have named her patient as the main suspect for her killing. Grayson's death has her peers and lawmakers renewing their years-long pleas for better protections for home care workers, including sending them out with escorts and providing more information about their patients. Yes. But if you know that this is what's in the halfway house, that does not make sense. That you should have at least a minimum of 2 people going out. Minimum. So this is getting my blood pressure up. So Grayson, who had been a nurse for over 36 years, including the past 10 as a visiting nurse, was found dead on October 28th in the Willimantic halfway house. She didn't return from a visit to patient Michael Reese, a convicted rapist. No charges has been filed in the killing as of yet. It's all nurses are thinking about right now, even the hospital nurses, because they've had so many close calls at Connecticut State Senator Martha Marks, a visiting nurse and New London Democrat who was calling for changes in both state and federal laws. Marks said she was once sent to a home and didn't find out until she talked to clients that this is a residence for sex offenders. Often, if a nurse asked for a chaperone, the agency would simply assign the work to another employee who won't make waves, she said. Grayson's death came about 11 months after another visiting nurse, Douglas Brandt, who I talked about in Spokane, Washington, was shot to death during a nursing visit, a killing that drove calls for safety reforms last year, including federal standards on preventing workplace violence. He was visiting the patient, and the patient's mentally ill grandson came out and shot him. And it says, while killings are rare, right, nursing home industry groups say non-fatal violence against healthcare workers is not. From 2011 to 2018, the rate of non-fatal violence against healthcare workers increased more than 60%, according to the latest analysis by the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics. And again, we reported last week that it is more dangerous to be a healthcare worker than it is to be a police officer. So this again should make you, as a healthcare worker, infuriated enough to contact your local and state legislators and to get something done. So U.S. Representative Joe Courtney, a Democrat who represents the congressional district where Grayson was killed, says there's no way home health workers should be sent into somebody's home or apartment by themselves. But yet and still, it's going to happen. He says the problem highlighted by Grayson's case is not just about safety, but also about attracting and retaining healthcare workers, many of whom feel the job is just too dangerous. Marks wants to see laws requiring security escorts for nurses in some cases, and for police to provide caregivers regularly updated lists of addresses where violent crime has occurred. She also said patients' charts should be flagged to alert nurses about past incidents of violence if they're registered sex offenders and other information. These are common things that really should be known, and we have to do better. All right, let's get going because we still have some more. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's get here. All right. Let's get to this last story for the day. I'm just going to wrap up here. This is our nurse making a difference, and I thought this was a good story for us to talk about. This is a good story for us to talk about. This is a UT Tyler nursing student graduates on her 72nd birthday. Don't tell me you can't do anything you set your mind to. So this is from the Tyler paper. I just thought this was wonderful. And it says, on her 72nd birthday, Mary Ruthie Graham graduated from UT Tyler's nursing school. She says, I had wanted to complete college all these years, and this was my opportunity. She earned her Bachelor's of Science in Nursing on Friday. I knew it was my time. Graham's earliest memory of being a nurse was dressing up when she was 6 years old, complete with a white dress and cap. 12 years later, she graduated with her graduate from high school, married Richard Graham, and helped him through his bachelor's degree in officer candidate school. During her husband's 9 years of active duty as a fighter pilot in the Navy, Graham gave birth to 4 children. She formed a bond with her bedside nurses and aspired to help other women as they helped her. She earned her RN license in 1994 and worked for 13 years in labor and delivery, while also helping her children obtain their degrees, including 1 RN license, 4 bachelor's, and 2 masters, and one currently in pursuit of her PhD. I saw my kids pursue their educational goals, and it inspired me to do the same, Graham said. They taught me that it was possible, that it could be within my reach too. I genuinely believe that anyone can complete college if they attend class and put their mind to it. She began taking her bachelor's degree in 2016, taking 1 class per semester as she helped homeschool 3 of her 6 grandchildren. UT Tyler made the program very accessible. I was able to take my classes from anywhere, in a camper, on a cruise ship, in my office, or even lying in bed. I couldn't have done it if the program wasn't so flexible and the professors were so understanding. On December 8th, she walked across the stage to receive her diploma. I want to say congratulations to her. And she says, one of Graham's favorite quotes is, "She believed she could, so she did." She says, "Keep going forward one step at a time, and you'll never regret where you'll end up." So that is our nurse making a difference. Congratulations, Ruthie Graham, on completing your bachelor's degree in science and nursing. Hats off to you. That's going to conclude our news segment for today. There was a lot to cover. I had a few more stories here, but I was more interested in getting to the good stuff. I want to thank you for tuning in. Just a reminder, we do have the TB classes coming up on the 20th, and our 3-day Kickstart Your 2024 event is coming up. So join us for that as well. I look forward to seeing you for there. Go to nurserockacademy.biz and sign up and register. Bye-bye for now.